Thank you, Donna, for joining us at Game On Magazine so early on this Thursday morning. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I can't complain. Thank you, Donna. We are going to talk about women's ice hockey and ice hockey in general. You are the captain of the South African women's ice hockey team. But let's talk about how did you get involved in ice hockey, especially considering that you do stay in Durban, and it's not the coldest place in the world. So
Yeah.
how did you get involved with ice hockey?
We used to ice skate quite a lot, and then my sister had a group of mates that started playing ice hockey, and she started playing, and a year later she told me to join her on the ice, so I just got on and gave it a try, and I loved every minute of it, so I carried on. We had at that stage a tiny little ice rink in Durban, so it didn't compare to anything else in the rest of South Africa, but it was still just a blast to be on the ice, so I got hooked.
Now, obviously, because it's considered a winter sport and it's played by countries like the US, Russia, and Canada. You know, their facilities are quite they're quite more advanced than we are, so than ours is.
Yeah.
But what does playing ice hockey entail? I mean, obviously you have to get down to an ice rink, and that all depends if your town has one. But outside of that, how often do you guys train?
It depends on the availability that the ice rink offers you. So different ice rinks offer more time. Different ice rinks have more clubs there, so they maybe don't get as much time. But on average, about 2 practices a week. We get 2 practices here in Durban. Cape Town gets a lot more. They can be on the ice 5-6 times a week. And then in Joburg, it's normally twice a week with a game on the weekend. Not much more than that, really.
Now tell me, you just said now depending on the availability of the ice rink, but I mean, you guys are the South Africa. You Proteas. You represent South Africa. Does that not play any role in getting more time to be on the ice, or is it almost like considered, because it's not really a mainstream South African sport, is it almost like they're doing you a favor to give you the rink?
Yeah, that's really it. They're not too concerned, and it's also expensive, and we have to pay for it ourselves. So if you're looking at an hour on the ice being, I don't know, I think it's 1,600 Rand in Gauteng now. That's quite expensive to increase your training time.
And I'm assuming the 1,600 Rand is what your clubs have to fork out to be able to play.
For an hour, yeah.
Oh, that's quite ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's fun. It's fun for the clubs because you get lots of people on the ice at one time. But when it comes to a national team practice and people are scattered all over the country, maybe in Joburg there's only 10 players, so every single practice they're having to fork out 150 Rand plus travel time plus everything. So it does get quite expensive to cover on your own.
And do you get any assistance from guys like Saskok? Is ice hockey recognized as a sport by the South African sporting bodies, or is it just something that you guys do, in your spare time?
They don't give us any funding. We do get funding from the International Federation and from our South African Association, but we're still having to spend a lot of money every year.
So how much on average does it cost you to practice and to compete in ice hockey? Just a rough figure, just so for interest's sake. How much does it cost?
I think so. Your monthly training for your clubs and that is anywhere from 600 to 1,000 Rand a month, but that's just for your club training. And then when it comes to national level and you start going to training camps and maybe interprovincials and those kind of things, I'd probably say 20,000.
Wow. And that, I mean, that's what is that? Is that including stuff like transport and accommodation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, accommodation often, especially for the ladies team, we just have to stay at each other's houses if we're in Joburg or Cape Town to save costs there. We don't.
So it's definitely finances play an integral role in
Yeah,
being able to
definitely.
play ice hockey. Now,
Yeah, and overseas trips cost between 8 and 15,000. So often people don't actually end up going because they don't have money to go.
no, for sure. Now, I mean, obviously, we've just spoken about transport and being able to get onto the ice, but I mean, the equipment itself, I'm assuming it's not made in South Africa because
No.
so you have to import this stuff.
Yeah, we have to import it. So we kind of order it online, and you kind of guess if it's going to fit you. Hope it fits a person like that, or the last one I had kind of fitted me well, so I'll get this one. Then you pay for shipping and you pay for customs. So by the time it gets here, it's really an expensive product that you're not actually sure if it's going to fit you or not. It's kind of a lottery.
Have you ever had a case of ordering something online? Because that's always my biggest fear, ordering something overseas and it gets here and it's too small. Have you ever had to send stuff back?
No, well, sending it back is just too expensive, so you end up just selling it to someone else.
Okay, so you guys have you've swapped stuff quite a bit between the players.
Yeah.
I mean, you play for a club in Durban called the Durban Rays, am I correct? Is there only one team in Durban?
There are 3 at the moment, but our ice rinks are not. They're not game ready. So the one I'm playing at the moment, there are no nets on the one side, and it's like quite a big size rink, and then the other one in Durban is probably a third of the size of a normal rink, and that also doesn't have nets on the one side. So we're not actually playing games at the moment. We just practice and only shoot in one direction. Well, so it's quite challenging.
You guys your ability to play and to train is severely affected by lack of infrastructure. And does the national body do they do any sort of fundraising to get you guys to be able to go, or because I can't fathom how. I mean, I've seen your photos of you playing for South Africa, and I'm assuming you've gone overseas before, and that all costs a lot of money.
Yeah. They do. They get quite big company sponsors. I'm not 100% sure how that infiltrates down to the women's team and the junior teams, but the men's team get a really good substantial contribution from, at the moment, a company I think called AfriGree or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. For the women, I think the association does contribute, and then we found our own individual sponsors.
Okay. And then, you just said Durban has 3 teams. What does the ice hockey scene look like across South Africa? How many teams are there roughly, and do you guys play against each other? You mentioned earlier about interprovincial stuff. Do you have a lot of that, like IPT in hockey? Let's talk about, the competitiveness of South African ice hockey.
So in Johannesburg, there's maybe 10 to 15 clubs. In Cape Town, they play more of just an association as a whole. There's 2 separate clubs within that association, but they kind of train together and then just have games once a week. So there's a good league running in Cape Town and Joburg. But as I said, we don't have any games here in Durban. And then interprovincials, every year in the school holidays, they have quite a substantial tournament from, I think it's under 12 to under 18. So that's quite competitive. Yeah. And then for the senior men, they've actually stopped interprovincials and they're running a national league throughout the year. Or not throughout the year, from June till September, I think, where they just travel, play 2 or 3 games against each other, and then wait until the next weekend. And then for the women, because we're struggling for numbers, it changes every year. One year we had a camp, and it was more like a development camp, and then played some games against each other. Last year we did have an interprovincial where the Durban girls joined the Western Province team. It kind of just, they take it as it goes because there's really not a lot of females playing at the moment.
Now, I mean, you've obviously represented South Africa quite a number of times. You've been playing since the early 2000s. How often do you guys play against international opponents?
We have a tournament once a year, and we'll play 3 to 5 games.
And what countries do you play against?
At the moment, we're in a division with Hong Kong, Bulgaria. Who else is there? Chinese Taipei has just come in. We haven't played against them. Last year we played Hong Kong, Bulgaria, and Romania.
I mean, Bulgaria and Romania are European countries where you would think ice hockey is a pretty established sport. I mean,
yeah.
To be able to do it outside on frozen lakes and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
How does South Africa fare against these international competitors like Hungary and Romania, Bulgaria, and stuff like that?
They've got like the International Federation sets you up in divisions, so you're always playing against people of a similar strength. And then whoever wins that tournament goes up a division, whoever loses goes down a division. So you're kind of always competing with similar level countries, which is quite nice. You don't have to worry about being drilled by the United States. We've never played against them, and I don't think we ever will play against them.
Yeah.
So like Romania, we beat last year, even though they won the tournament. Bulgaria, we also beat last year. So those, I suppose, smaller European countries, we can actually compete with.
You just spoke now about a development tournament from under 12, under 13 to under 18, and that's pretty interesting. So there is channels for the youth to be able to start playing ice hockey pretty young. But that's very great to hear. And then, outside of ice hockey, you're also a field hockey player. I mean, obviously, it's both hockey and you both you play with a hockey stick and you hit a ball or a puck. Besides from the skating part of it, are the rules and stuff like that pretty similar?
Not really, because obviously in hockey you can't kick the ball or puck with your foot, and in ice hockey that's actually a skill. You can actually kick it. You don't just by mistake it hits your foot. You can bump people, you can lift their sticks with your stick in ice hockey. So I suppose field hockey is a little bit more tame.
No, that's something. If you look at ice hockey, I've never watched a live game, having been to the States myself. But watching it on TV and stuff like that, it seems to be a pretty violent sport.
Yeah.
It looks like rugby on ice, to be honest. I think the stick is just there it just seems to be there for decoration. And as a woman, does it put strain on your body to be able to, because you guys are bashing into each other at huge speeds?
Yeah, so the women's rules are a little bit different. You can't just go out and flatten someone wherever you want. You have to, they call it like squeezing or same direction contact. So if someone's skating along the board, you can go in the same direction they're skating and push them onto the board. You can't just flatten someone in the middle of the ice like you can in the men's game. So it does take a lot of that risk away, but it's still far more physical than any other female game. So it does still put a lot of strain on your body and a lot of injuries, a lot of concussions.
What is the worst injuries that you've had? Despite the fact that you have, blades on your feet, which is in itself extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
What is the worst injuries that you've suffered on the ice?
I've had a number of concussions, which I'm a bit concerned that in my later years are going to come back to haunt me.
Yeah.
So those are probably the worst.
So no broken bones and stuff like that.
No, I've been pretty lucky.
Pretty lucky. But concussions. Anyone who's had a severe concussion knows that. I think many people would rather just break an arm than have a concussion because it's not a very nice feeling when you're concussed. Donna, just to sidestep a little bit and go into your personal life, you were recently married, and you're actually married to a man who plays for the South African men's team.
Yes.
Given you now have an insight into men's hockey, ice hockey at least. You know, what are your thoughts on the men's game in South Africa? Is it more developed than the women's game is?
Yeah, it definitely is more developed. They've probably got, I don't know, almost 10 times the players, maybe 8 times the players that we've got. They can afford to run a competitive 3-team league where we're just battling to put 2 teams together in the country to play against each other. So that makes it far more competitive, and it allows them to kind of grow and develop in their in how they are playing ice hockey. So the only way that kind of the better females get to develop is playing against other males. So it's not really developing your female game. It's developing in a male game and then bring it back to the females, if that makes any sense.
No, for sure. And tell us, you know, do you guys practice together? Do you get onto the ice together and you know, hit around the puck a bit?
The female team.
No, well, you and your husband, do you practice?
Oh, yeah, no, we do. We play for the same club in Durban, so we really enjoy playing together.
Okay, it's just quite interesting. It's quite interesting to have to find a couple that are both in the same sport, that are both presented at the highest level. So when I saw that, I was quite impressed by that.
Yeah, it's lots of fun.
But you know, there's a lot of youngsters out there who don't know what ice hockey is. I mean, my youngest brother and sister like to ice skate up in Joburg, and you know, what would you say to guys who are out there who you know, who maybe aren't very good at the traditional South African sport like rugby or netball or hockey? What would you say to youngsters who are thinking of picking up an ice hockey stick and getting out there, but are a little bit afraid to do it? What would you say?
I always just say, just come on and you know, get on the ice and give it a try. Maybe you don't like it, but maybe it's like the thing that you've been missing in your life for so long. There's tons of clubs that, especially in Joburg and Pretoria, Cape Town, play every night of the week. So you literally just need to go down to the ice rink on a weekday. They've got tons of kit they can lend you, so it's not like you have to spend lots of money on kit when you're not even sure if you like the sport. Put on a pair of skates and a helmet and go chase something on the ice. You're bound to have lots of fun, but if you don't, you haven't really missed out on anything anyway.
Yeah. You know, a big thing with any athlete is that they will have role models that they look up to. Well, in whatever stage of their career they are. I mean, you're quite established. You've been playing for the South African team for a very long time. Who are your role models, or who are your role models as an ice hockey player?
It's tough because it would be really nice to have a female role model, but we don't get much exposure to higher females, so you kind of catch them on the Winter Olympics or those kind of things. And there's one player, her name's Hilary Knight. She's just like, she's big and strong and fast, and she's an absolute inspiration, but you kind of don't get to watch her so much because we don't get a lot of coverage here. So I think, and for a lot of the girls, our role models are more the top guys in the national team. Our women's coach is Andre Murray. He's the captain of the men's team and the coach of our ladies team. And he's just a great player, and at the age, I think he's 34 now, the oldest player in the team. He just went and got the MVP for his team and best defense of the tournament in the international tournament, which is great to see that, you know, I'm nearly hitting the 30s. As I get older, you know, it's not over.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of other just such strong males in our country, Mark Geo, Dave Watson, that you just watch them and you like astounded at their speed and pace. And those guys are also hitting the older ages, but still competing with the 21-year-old young bunnies.
And then, you know, I mean, being an athlete, you require a lot of support. You know, not just from family and friends, but coaches and management and even your supporters. Who would you say, who's been a standout supporter of your career, just off the top of your head? Who has been there since day one, pushing you and encouraging you to do so great on the ice?
I'll definitely say my dad. He's definitely my number one supporter. He just thinks I'm fantastic. Shame. But yeah, he's been there from day one. He's always encouraging me to play. Maybe, there's obviously been times where I'm like, this is too much. Maybe want to throw in the towel, and he just keeps me on the right path.
Yeah.
Playing hard, training hard, getting stuck in. And, obviously it being quite expensive to tour every year, he just keeps saying every single year, you have to go until they no longer ask you to go.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dad, for always encouraging our captain of the South African women's team. As we end off, just for interest's sake, do you follow international ice hockey? Do you watch stuff like the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And they've actually just had the top division of the international championships now, and it was on streaming and in Russia, so it was nice timing. We watched all of that, and it's another level, but it's fantastic to watch.
For sure. Donna, thank you so much for joining us again on this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and finding a little bit more about the South African ice hockey scene. We really appreciate it, and we wish you all the best with your future endeavors.
Thanks very much.